At 11:53, I'll be calling upon the mover to reply. And you know that we cannot change the number of minutes that you speak at this moment. It was not done at the beginning of the motion. So you may choose to speak for less minutes, then it means that within the remaining time, more of you are going to speak. So I'll give then an opportunity to my left, and that will go to the member for Lugari.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to start by appreciating my colleague Ruto for pulling a fast on this. Madam Speaker, whereas many of my colleagues have hushed the House, asking that the motion, the implementation of CBC was rushed, I'll take a completely different view. Inertia and failure by government machinery does not amount to more time for people to implement a policy. Up to where we are today, we have done well over 8 years into CBC. By now, we should have learned the ropes of what we need. What is ailing CBC and implementation of JSS? Rightfully so, Madam Speaker, the lack of policy and clear framework on what needs to be done by whom and when. It appears that every day the executive is taken by surprise. We've not put enough into the planning of this very well, if implemented, system that will change the life of our nation. Madam Speaker, it is true that even in my constituency, a number of schools were left out. And when I looked at the tool that was being used, it was a very subjective tool. It actually depended on the people who visited the school. And eventually, almost all my schools have been put back. What was shocking to me, a school that has even up to class 8, they will not approve it to have JSS simply because they think the amount of land is not enough. And it has up to class 8. So I asked, what does a JSS classroom require? If I've been having up to class 8 and you cannot allow the same school to run a JSS class. Madam Speaker, my proposal is basic, that all primary schools must have JSS. Madam Speaker, for many years in this country, we have lived a lie. And if we are not careful to correct the mistakes of the past, education is going to be only for the rich. And I see an opportunity, Madam Speaker, in the JSS, an opportunity that will equalize all of us into having the same kind of education. Why do I say this? The decision to host junior secondary in primary is one step towards equalization. Madam Speaker, we know that in this country, because of categorization of schools, some schools have been given, actually oversupplied by resources. Some schools receive millions of shillings in support, while others that require get nothing. Some schools in this country, because of categorization, they have oversupply of teachers. Whereas some schools are understaffed. Some don't even have TSC teachers, and yet they are registered schools. Madam Speaker, having every primary school have JSS is one way of creating equity by not having special schools, national schools, extra-county schools, sub-county schools, and county schools. Madam Speaker, one of the major issues in this country about planning of education is the people at the Treasury developing a model of funding without talking to the stakeholders, without talking to educationists. I'm proposing that as we go forward with Honorable Rugu's motion, we must include a funding model that takes into consideration the views of the stakeholders of education. Why am I saying this? Madam Speaker, you are aware that no primary school has a laboratory. You are aware that in this country we have made a decision that we are going to have a resource center at that level. Madam Speaker, the only tested model in providing infrastructure for school that works is the one that has been done by NGCDF. The Ministry of Education, through this policy, must have a working model with NGCDF so that it gives NGCDF a conditional grant to develop resource centers. Madam Speaker, 35,000 classrooms of JSS, they have averagely one teacher each. I want to urge this House that we resolve that we provide a funding line for JSS as a project. Why am I saying this? Madam Speaker, we know that if we are still to lump all the money under basic education, when it comes to division, the decision remains with the person who has the pass. But if we provide a budget line for JSS, then the money will go into ensuring that JSS succeeds. Finally, Madam Speaker, I want to propose, as we look at this, that as members of this House, we start thinking on how to make education affordable. And Madam Speaker, I'm proposing that we must resolve as a House that is it the time we need to go to school. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support the motion.
Thank you. The Honorable Phyllis Bato, member for Moiben.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute on this motion on policy framework for the JSS curriculum or